Hi, I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, and I'm based here in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. And today I want to give you my top 3 favorite value-oriented portrait lenses for Nikon full-frame cameras. So you're an aspiring portrait photographer on a budget who just spent a small fortune on a Nikon full-frame camera. And you need a lens that won't break the bank, but can still simultaneously give you dazzling results in your portraits. So what are your options? Well, before we get into this list, we need to set a few ground rules in order to narrow the scope of this video just a little bit. Because when it gets into value-oriented lenses, invariably somebody's going to chime in and talk about an obscure lens that Nikon put out in the 1970s and you can find on eBay for less than $100. I'm sure those lenses are out there. I'm sure they exist. I'm sure it's also true that some manual focus lens that you can pick up at a local garage sale is going to be the holy grail of secret lenses. I get it. But we have to narrow the scope for a video like this, and here are the 4 parameters that we're going to be working within for this video. Number 1, the lens has to be less than $500 new. Number 2, the lens has to be available for purchase new today, and today is June of 2018. Number 3, the lens must have autofocus with Nikon full-frame cameras. And number 4, the widest aperture must be at least f2.8. Now let's just go a little bit further and define what a portrait lens is. Typically a portrait lens is for a headshot or a 3/4 shot with some background that gives the person or subject in the image a sense of place. But the primary objective of a portrait lens is to make the subject, a person, look good, either on their own or with some environmental elements included. So what that means, we're somewhere in the range of 50mm on the wide end and 200mm on the long end. My personal sweet spot is somewhere between 85 and 135mm, though I do shoot a lot of portraits at 200mm and I've shot a bunch at 35mm too. Today, I'm usually shooting portraits between 85 and 135mm. I also like wide apertures, so I like to shoot my portraits at f2.8 or wider. My personal sweet spot is around f2. But I've taken plenty of great portraits at f2.8, even f4, even f8 in heavily backlit sunny days. So keep those things in mind before you throw rocks at me in the comments section. So enough of that, let's get on to the list. Number 3, and I have it in my hand right here. It's a Nikon AFS 50mm f1.8G lens. Now 50mm is a staple for a lot of photographers, and I bought the 50mm f1.8 as one of the first lenses for Nikon when I switched over in 2014. I'd read a lot of really good things about the lens, and I didn't have a whole lot of money when I made the switch, so I picked one up and I'm really glad that I did. Now truthfully, of the 3 lenses on this list, this is probably the one that I used the least. Even though 50mm is a normal field of view, it's a little bit wide for the kind of portraits that I personally prefer to take. But there are tons of photographers out there who love 50mm for portraits. Now on the plus side, this thing is super light. AF speed is really quick and accurate, and the optics are pretty sharp even at f1.8. Now on the downside, it's plastic fantastic, meaning that it's really not built all that well. There are also only 7 rounded aperture blades, so bokeh can be a little bit on the rough side. There are also some noticeable chromatic aberrations, but that's about it. And for $216, I think you can probably live with those shortcomings. Number 2. Number 2 is the Tokina 100mm f2.8 macro. To me, this is arguably the single best all-around value lens in all of cameradom. Not only is it really excellent at its main purpose of shooting macro, but a lot of photographers will tell you that 100mm is right in the sweet spot for portraiture. On the upside, it's built like a tank. I mean, seriously, it's really built like a tank. The optics are sharp, even wide open. At 100mm, the Tokina is an absolutely stunning portrait lens. With its f2.8 aperture wide open, there's a tremendous amount of subject isolation and background blur that will really give your portraits a lot of that 3D pop that we really crave. As for downsides, autofocus isn't available on every Nikon body. It's for Nikon bodies that have the screw drive motor built into the camera, which is most of Nikon's full-frame cameras, if not all of them. And if you look at the lens mount of your camera, you can see this little circle thing that protrudes from the mount. Well, that's your screw drive that powers the AF in a lot of older Nikon compatible lenses. The bottom line is, AF isn't all that fast and it's a little bit buzzy, but if you're shooting macro, you're probably going to be utilizing the lens manual focus ring anyway. And if you're shooting portraits, your subject will likely be static, and fast autofocus really doesn't come into play, nor will it make or break your shot. And even though the autofocus is a little bit on the buzzy, slow side, I found it to be extremely accurate. Other downsides, like virtually all the Tokina lenses that I've used and tested, the 100 macro suffers from noticeable chromatic aberrations. Fortunately, those things are very fixable in Lightroom. The Tokina has been lauded by a lot of YouTubers, including me, coupled with the fact that it's regularly priced at $399, and that Tokina becomes the very definition of a steal. Which of course leads us to number one. Number one is the Nikon 85mm f1.8G lens. This is probably my single most used go-to lens in my entire Nikon arsenal. It's a backbone of a lens when I'm shooting portraits or when I'm shooting a wedding, especially for those bridal portraits and those getting ready shots. To me, this is a simply beautiful and sublime lens, regardless of its price. But when you throw in its value price, then it simply becomes unreal. The optics are amazing, AF speed is quick and accurate, all of the usual aberrations are reasonably well controlled, that is vignetting, chromatic aberrations, etc. Now the downside is the build quality. Like the others on this list, except for the Tokina, it's made out of really cheap plastic, but it gets the job done. I've had the 85 going on 4 years now, and I've experienced no problems whatsoever. It's truly been a special lens that has captured lasting memories for both me and for my clients. So hats off Nikon, this is truly one of the best gems in the entire Nikon lineup, and in my opinion belongs in every Nikon shooter's bag. So there you have it, my top 3 value portrait lenses for Nikon full frame cameras. Now, tell me what I've missed, tell me what I got right, and I'm sure you'll tell me what I got wrong too. I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, based here in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. If you like videos like this, please go ahead and give me a like, or better yet, subscribe. The links to purchase these lenses are down below in the description. And until the next time, happy shooting.